holistic about it.
Greetings, family. This is Baba Ahnk and Baba Kwabena for Kemites View. Sunday, the 14th of August. I have a lot of siblings, or at least 3 siblings with families with birthdays in this month. So I'm thankful for that. Thankful to be in front of you. And what do you got, Baba Kwabena? Anything new?
Just gratitude for you, Baba. I'm grateful for this opportunity to get together with you on a regular basis and for us to just chop it up like this and to share our thoughts and ideas. And though there are our ideas and thoughts, sometimes we get it right.
Sometimes we don't, but that's okay.
Right.
That's all
That's
part of the
okay.
mix.
It's all a part of the process.
As I learned in the nation when I did my little sejour. I forget. I got Spanish, French, and English, and African.
It sometimes all runs together.
What they call it, Ebonics, which I'm the most proud of, bouncing around in my brain.
Right.
And so I forget these words. I had to look at them sometimes. But anyway, make a long story short, steel sharpens steel, brother. So I consider you steel, and I know I am, and we sharpening each other.
Yes, sir.
So I just wanted to say a couple things up front before we got started here. I'm going to try and keep this thing, like we said, to an hour or less. I just wanted to bring, our viewers, to use a Kemetic perspective to look at the law and the news and what's going on in the world today, and be thankful and happy, but and also give us the proper mindset to move forward and not think that it's so overwhelming that we're going to lose or whatever, because they always come up with these lies.
Right.
But I wanted to say first that knowledge of natural law is key. What I mean by that is, look at the natural world, look at nature. That's what our ancient ancestors used to do all what they did, because that was following God, not some artificial construct in a book that some folks sat down and said this should be here. They looked at the real book, which is the book of life, which is nature itself, which is unfolding forever in front of us. And more will focus on truth. And I was talking to a guy the other day, we were talking about truth, and he was saying something to the effect of, that's my truth, or that's their truth. And at first, that used to irritate the hell out of me to hear that, because I'm thinking that there's either the truth or it's a lie. But you go to the story of the 5 blind men and the elephant. That's the perfect example of someone's relative truth that is not the whole truth, but to recognize that their relative truth is just a part, and to step back and look at the elephant in the center of the room and not think that just because you touching his tail, then you got the whole picture.
Yeah, right.
That's the problem. So if you get stuck on my truth, then you lost, in my view. So I just wanted to bring that up to you.
And that's a Western mindset, right? We've been trained that way, to be more linear in our thinking.
Right. And so another thing I want to say before I get to the news is that the crackheads in power, and that's what I call these money junkies. They're nothing but crackheads on money. You got people, crackheads on cocaine, crackheads on heroin, crackheads on McDonald's. Look around you. I've seen people, man, looking like, ooh, they crackheads. I call them, that's my generic term for somebody who's addicted to something that controls them. And they're, even though they're sitting up there looking all powerful, Joe Biden, another example, he's a crackhead. In fact, he might not even be a crack. I think he might be just a mannequin. He reminds me of that movie, Weekend at Bernie's. Have you ever seen that movie?
That sounds familiar.
I think we talked about it before, but the brief synopsis: this guy runs a company. He dies on Friday, but the people who are with him, young workers, whatever, got to keep him alive till Monday in order to make something happen. He was killed, I guess, or something. So they go around and make the boy, basically he's a mannequin. He's a dead man that they're running around the golf courses and other things, going to parties with just his body, this guy, and they're like making him a mannequin. And that's how I see Biden. That's how I see Biden. So I'm thinking every time about our government, weekend at Biden's instead of weekend at Burton's. All right.
Weekend at Bernie's. I'm gonna have to go
Okay.
look it up. It sounds funny.
It is funny as hell. I didn't see the whole thing. I saw part of it. Enough of it to, especially now with the current occupant in the White House, current puppet in power, as I used to say, is going along and doing this thing. It's more obvious too as we go forward that all of them are puppets, man. Trump was a puppet.
Yeah.
You know, Obama was a puppet.
Yeah.
So, you know, before him, Baby Bush,
Mm-hmm.
Clintons were puppets. They have their own leeway and they can do certain things to
Right. Right.
affect and improve their particular, you know, livelihood and those around them, and maybe even start wars, this, that, and the other. But for the most part, they have a script that they follow and they
Yeah.
don't deviate from that.
Right.
Or else they get shown that film, that Zapruder film of the Kennedy's head being blown off from a totally different angle. You know, do you understand?
That's you know, and there's some truth in that, right? There's a lot of truth in that. I mean, you're making light of it, but there's a lot of truth in that.
Yeah, that's how I see it happening.
Wow.
And you know, the whole thing is the goal is to keep people in a state of ignorance and awe and confused to be manipulated and shorn like sheep. So that's what the media does, and that's their job. And that's why I look at these programs, especially entertainment programs and entertainers. They're some of the most despicable people on the planet, and they don't mean to be. And people get mad at me because they like Beyonce, they like Jay-Z, they like you know, these stars.
Right.
But from me, from an African Kemetic perspective, I see them merely as distractions to keep us away from who we truly are and realizing our own divinity and power. We worship by proxy these so-called stars who are put there and paid by people with real money.
Not realizing that we are the stars.
Exactly.
We're all stars.
Each and every one. And we don't have to look up to these clowns.
Right.
We just have to come into our own power, which we are doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then all that stuff will pass away. But anyway, I'm impatient. Okay, getting on to our little news, little synopsis I do. Starting in Africa, of course, because I'm an African, even though some might say, no, I'm not African, I'm American, whatever. I do that. That's like what I like what Malcolm said. Malcolm said that I'm not African because I was born in Africa. I'm African because Africa was born in me.
That was actually Kwame Nkrumah's quote.
Kwame Nkrumah said that. Okay, yeah, well, thank you for correcting me.
Yeah, he's the originator of that quote, and it just kind of proliferated throughout the Pan-African community because it's true, right? I say it all the time. I say it all the time.
I think I see it even when you're in different countries where you see African people, like say in South America, and you see what Black people do, and you see it's the same, it's similar, even though maybe a different language, whatever, but you can see the similarities there.
It's in the DNA.
In the DNA. All right, so go over to Kenya, which is the largest or most important country in East Africa, of course. They're running a presidential race. And the deputy president is William Ruto, has 51.25%. And then another guy outsider, Raila Odinga, has 48.09%, with 50% of the ballots cast. And they're making a big deal out of this. And I don't know if it is or not. And I guess it is, because I'm not a big fan of democracy, first of all. But I just, a couple questions come to mind is this electronic voting? Who's counting the ballots? Is this paper ballots or electronic ballots? We know Kenya is extremely important in terms of Africa in general, East Africa in particular, and just the world in general, because they have so many resources. It's just such a beautiful place. What I've told, I've never been there, but people I know who've gone there tell me about all the resources, and I know there's a lot. Then what's the benefit of democracy there in Kenya? That's a question I have, even though I have people who, I think democracy is the cat's meow.
Right.
And what's interesting, final thing I want to bring up, in the article, the parties, either side, are pleading for peace. So even though it's a close election, they're saying, the candidates, those two people I mentioned, they're saying, oh, let's just keep it peaceful. Let's keep it peaceful. What does that mean? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't have the context for it because I haven't followed the news on it. But if it is, if they're both parties are being truthful to that statement, maybe they're reflecting on how things were in our recent election, the Biden-Trump scenario, and how Trump wouldn't relinquish. We never had a president that would not relinquish the presidency, and then and propagated this lie that it was stolen. When and even though it's politics and it's a dirty business, that spoke volumes to the world to see that happen, to see that there wasn't a peaceful transition as there has always been. And so maybe they're reflecting on that when they make that comment. Now, whether or not that will happen once the election is over, there is a different story, because we know that politicians parrot. They're not truthful. They're not honest in most cases. They always have an agenda that's different than what they've run on, the platform that they run on. And so it's kind of hard to say until it's done.
Well, for me, like I said, I mean, I disagree with you about the elections, even though I don't really think it matters, puppet Biden or puppet Trump. They're still going to be beholden to the money
Sure.
interests.
Sure.
The drugs are going to keep flowing. The currency is going to stay a fiat. Israel's going to get their millions and billions of dollars of weapons. You know,
and Black people will continue not to get any reparations or any fair treatment amongst other races. Yep. It's the same old same.
I think those are the big rocks in the bucket, and we definitely agree on that. But with regards to this violence, them bringing that up, maybe I think there has been violence before in Kenyan elections, and they are trying to make sure that that doesn't occur this time.
Okay.
But the real violence needs to be them kicking the World Bank and all those banksters and all them other folks out of their country. That's where the violence needs to be. But of course, they're not going to do that. So,
and the U.S. The U.S. sent Blinken over there. He's there now. He's visiting different African nations, and there was a news broadcast on the African News Network where in South Africa he chided South Africans for not standing against Trump, and then mentioned the sanctions that Congress had voted on to implement against African countries because they would not side with the West. And so the prime minister in South Africa came back, clapped back. She says, who are you to tell us, a sovereign nation, who we should side with? It's our choice. We're sovereign. But I'll have to send you the clip. But she laid it out. She said, our problem is that you people are always meddling in our affairs instead of allowing us to be who we are. And which is rightly so. So I'm glad that African countries are standing up for themselves and voicing back to the West to let them know that you're not going to bully us, and we're going to do what we want to do because we are sovereign and we can do that.
Lincoln is an idiot, but I apologize. I'm insulting idiots. I mean, this guy is
another crack user. So
that's exactly right. And it's just pathetic. I'm like, how could this guy? He basically, is bent over, did everything he needed to do to move up on the casting council, whatever he did. But in terms of brain cells, he's like, a couple chips shy of a full bag of potato chips, man. Like, dude, you are really you're not even remembering the people's names. You can have a little list in front of your cheat sheet. You got, umpteen assistants. You flew over there on a plane with your assistants to help you with everything.
Right.
And you still can't get things right? Dude.
Yeah.
It's sad, but that shows you our as some
Arrogance.
call it, huh?
It shows you our arrogance, the arrogance of the West.
Well, the arrogance of the West, and I want to go a little bit deeper and talk about what they talk about ZOG, which is Zionist occupied government, because most of those people are Zionists, and all that other stuff. But anyway, that's that. Let's move on. Mali, and I find it a little interesting. I had to go back to my favorite place in Africa, Mali, I guess. Authorizes UN troops rotations after standoff, but apparently there were UN troops coming into Mali to help fight the jihadists and the Muslim jihadists who are fighting in Africa, Mali, and that region of the Sahel. And somehow or another, they were moving around without, I guess, properly informing the government of Mali. So Mali kicked out the UN, but now they're back on the same page and they're getting better communication. And I don't know if that's good or not, but I guess you got to play the game. Don't hate the player, hate the game. So they're in the game, they're having to play because they have that junta. They call them the junta, but basically military government, and they're in close with Russia, and the U.S. doesn't like that. And I guess maybe they're trying to play both ends against the middle to make sure that they don't get invaded. But I don't think with their tie to Russia now that they will get invaded like they did with Gaddafi, because that was part of Russia's realization or power moves that it's made. So we'll see what happens in there. I'm keeping my eye on Mali, of course. And I saw something else. Moving on to Egypt, there was a fire at a Coptic church in Egypt, and it killed 41 people, and 14 were hurt. They were saying that it was probably because of the stampede, and it was a densely packed area. It just makes me wonder, because in Egypt, they're racist people, man. They don't like black people. The Coptics, so they look just like the Egyptians. The Arab, who are just a mixture of blacks and Arabs and Turks. And you can see the difference between the Egyptians and the Arabs from Saudi Arabia or from Syria. They're definitely, you can see the black strain there. But the Coptics, their language is the language closest identified with what the ancient Egyptians, the Kemites, spoke. So they're very important from that regard, and we need to look at them. But they're like 10% of the population, so they get abused and mistreated. So whenever I see something like that, it makes me just wonder what's going on. And maybe it was just a fire. It just seems odd that a fire would cause so much death. But hey, stampeding people, they could happen.
Yeah. And again, but it's where we are, right? In our analysis of the day, our analysis of the time, and having pulled back away from the matrix, we have to be more aware, right? And to look more closely at what is happening, because it's never what it is on the surface.
Never what it is on the surface.
Never what it is on the surface. Yeah.
I was told that are you a conspiracy theorist? I said, no, I'm a conspiracy realist, because when I studied in school, law school that is, there's a such thing called conspiracies that exist. So conspiracies are real and they do exist. But you seem to me to be a coincidence theorist. You think all this stuff always happens by coincidence. And so I'll claim to be a conspiracy theorist if you claim to be a coincidence theorist, because you always saying all these things is coincidental, and I just don't understand it personally.
Right. Nothing is coincidental, and we learned that. Coincidental. Right? We learned that in these practices that we're exploring and that came out of Kemet, right? Nothing's coincidental. Right. Nothing's coincidental.
And we created with our own mind and through our physical efforts and bodies. And just like, people who pass, I saw something which is really interesting. This guy, Albert Bourla, who is over, I think, Pfizer, but his family goes back to being foot soldiers or henchmen for the Rothschilds when they took over the central bank in England. Because the story goes that this guy, Napoleon, was having a war. He didn't like bankers either. either. He didn't like bankers.
Mhm.
And he was and there was a war right at Waterloo. I think it was near Belgium or something like that. I was looking it up the other day. It was pretty interesting because everyone talks about Hitler meeting his Waterloo. Well, when the battle occurred, Hitler lost for, I won't go into why, there's different reasons, but he lost. And Rothschilds at the stock market in London, it made it seem like Hitler was, well, not Hitler, but Napoleon, same thing. Napoleon was winning, so they pretended that Napoleon was winning, so they were selling all the, I think they were selling all their shares. So everyone thought that that was the case. So everyone else sold all their shares. Well, he told his Confederates, the Rothschild people, to buy all those shares cheap, pennies on the dollar.
Mhm.
And meanwhile, at the battle, they had this guy who was watching it, and he had a carrier pigeon or a couple, whatever. And he sent carrier pigeons back to London to tell them the true state of the battle. Because, you know, back then they didn't have electronic cell phones and
Right.
whatnot. Everything
Right.
had to come by horse or foot,
Right.
whatever, or screaming
Right.
across the valley. But anyway, they had a homing pigeon or a carrier pigeon, and the carrier pigeon was able to bring the information back. And the people who was running the carrier pigeon service for Rothschild was Boyle's family.
Mm.
So, you know, it's like the more things change, the more they stay the same. And now
Exactly.
he's running their injection program with the Rothschilds people to get rid of these folks who think that it's okay to take experimental drugs in their bodies. It's
Mm.
this wonderfully developed and designed piece of machinery or expression that God has given us to drive for whatever 70, 80, 100 years, whatever we get. I think I'm due about 120. That's
Mhm.
my thoughts. But
Yeah, that's mine.
anyway,
That's my number.
anyway, I thought that was interesting about that Borla guy and the what went on with the Rothschilds and how things stay the same. But anyway, anything else before I move on to the next one?
No, you good.
Okay. One brief thing, go over to Burkina Faso, where our other black military leadership is taking over power from the bankers to a degree. It says that the army is to, but Burkina Junta, I hate that word. Burkina Junta says army to win back areas lost to the insurgents. So, you know, Mali and Burkina suffer from the same thing. These insurgents are fighting them. But it's a 7-year-old insurgency, which goes back to the time of Gaddafi when Gaddafi fell and how the West wanted to topple these countries for resources and riches and whatnot. It's always the case. And these insurgents, alleged insurgents, are in the north and east of the country. But what's interesting is that there's no mention of his strategy, but the people are asking what the strategy is. Why do they need to tell you what they're going to plan on doing? And why
Mhm.
is that a topic of the paper? I mean, you know, this article. You know, it's like we got to tell you everything what we're doing, and they're wise not to tell you what their plan is, because you're probably going to run right back and tell the junta people or the jihadists and tell them to go someplace else to avoid
Right.
it, because that's who's running them, right? They're paid by
Right. Right.
MI6, CIA,
Mhm.
you know, so those spy agencies.
Yep. Yep.
I found that interesting. Once again, we come in with our comedic point of view. And why are they discussing it? Maybe they're mad that they're not telling them what their plans are. And here we go to Ghana, your place. I definitely want to go get back in with you on this one because it really just sickened me.
Mm.
Ghana doubles IMF funding target to 3 billion.
Oh, I
Bloomberg.
know. Oh, I know. Oh my God. Yeah.
My question is why?
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is something that is exalted by the West, like it's good. They're going into debt, and it could have been for 1.5 billion, but no, Ghana they doubled it down. They want to show how good that little Negro they got as their president was a good little Negro. No, we're gonna
Right.
double it, master. You gave us
Right.
a shit sandwich. No, we want 2 shit sandwiches. You don't want just one, master. I'm
we want
showing
a
you.
we want a quarter pounder. Supersize
Supersize it. Supersize the shit sandwich, master.
it.
Oh my God. I'm looking
Yeah.
at this and Ghana,
Yeah.
rich country,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
you
Yes.
know, and now
You know,
you put your people in more debt and enslavement. It's, oh my.
since I was
So
there in
what are your
October,
thoughts, sis? Your place, yes. Go ahead.
since I was there in October. So when I was there in October, the CD was at about 6.5 per CD per US dollar.
Really? That's far from what I remember. It used to be way different than that. But 6.5 CDs per dollar? Wow, that's good.
Yeah, yeah, but now it's 9
Nine, huh?
in
Okay.
less than a year.
So it's lost what, 30%?
Yeah,
Devalue at least
and
30%?
it's still losing.
Wow.
It's still losing. And then he goes and borrows. They go and borrow all this money, and so it's like, what? Why? What? And I can't help but think, is it how could they not have the money to mine their own natural resources? Um, I don't understand. You've got all of this wealth in country, and you can't seem to utilize, because the government controls the natural resources. Now, granted, to a degree, I mean, it's on the chiefs control the land, and if the resources, of course, are on the land, then there's your chiefs are involved with it because it's land. But the government taxes it and makes the deals for a lot of those who do the mining, right? And I just don't understand why they're so Western dependent when they have all of these resources to themselves. And they keep finding new resources. You know, Ghana, this, their oil discovery is pretty recent, new oil. And so it's like, it just doesn't make sense. And so so one of the Ghanaians that was here visiting, who wants to get with me when he gets back from Detroit, we were talking about this. And I was telling him, one of the things that I'd like to do, and now it's definitely since, well, whether became a chief or not, I was wanting to do this. I wanted to set up a mentoring program and mentor youth, young men and women, for Parliament,
Mm,
to replace who's in place, who's there now.
mm.
And I don't even know how to do that, but it doesn't matter. The universe knows.
Indeed.
The
That would
universe.
be nice, especially if they have a Kemetic African
Yes,
first, mind first
yes, yes,
mindset.
yes, yes.
And it's
And
definitely daring in Ghana because
mhm,
of the history. So
of course,
yeah.
of course, of course, of course. And so, but I believe that the collaborative components will come together to make it work. That everything that's needed will just fall into place, and uh, how things do that it'll be a how things click, just click click. As we keep moving forward, just everything lines up so that we can put together a program that will foster that and help push a different agenda for Ghanaian people.
Everything is in divine order. And the thing is, what you were just talking about is interesting because even though Africans have the actual wealth, we've been hoodwinked and bamboozled to think that the wealth is represented by the chip or the ticket, the coupon.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
basically, we are playing a game of monopoly money,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and we don't manufacture the paper, nor do
Right,
we control its distribution,
right, right.
even though we got the real wealth. So that's really what it's coming down to. We've decided to participate in this game where we will be impoverished. And until we stand up and get out of this game, we're going to always be this way because we're already sucking hind tit, as they say. The people who showed us the way they've been demonized, but it's the truth. Adolf Hitler, look at his economic program. Another
Mm-hmm,
one, look at what's his name? Abraham Lincoln. You can take your resources and write. The U.S. did it initially before the central banks took over. You can write debt off. You create debt with your government, use that to back the currency, then distribute the currency throughout the people to the people to do the work, the task, and then that circulates and creates development. It's not a hard thing, but when you have a central bank who borrows the money and interest, you're already coming in at the end. And that's what's going on with Ghana. Right. Ghana does not own its central bank.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's owned by London.
Yeah.
And so they have to make a profit first. So Ghana will never be able to do anything as long as their bank is not owned by the Ghanaian people. Do they even need a bank?
Yeah.
So that's a big deal that we need to get into. But anyway, that's my view on that. Anything else, brother?
No, it's a humongous task, but it ain't too big for the universe.
Nah, it ain't. It's just a matter of time. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to the next one. This is another one kind of similar to what's going on in Ghana, but worse. I'm gonna step over here, go a little east here, about 3 countries here, and get over to Nigeria. And this is in the paper, and this is the article. I just look at the headlines because the headlines are made and the articles are made to form people's minds and thought processes. Because I heard Africans here who live here in the U.S., or Americans, and they talk about how terrible Africa is, why it's so poor, why it's so messed up. And a lot of it has to do with them listening to the media and accepting what the media says and not saying, well, they lied before. So they're probably lying now.
Again. Right.
And so I'm going to not accept what they're saying because they're liars. Yes. And when you have someone who's a liar, why would you accept their words as truth? So anyway, they're saying that Nigerians are struggling with basic needs.
Yeah.
Africa's largest economy, and they're poking fun at it and laughing at us too. Largest economy is struggling with inflationary pressure that results from Russia's war in Ukraine. Now, what the hell Russia's war in Ukraine got to do with Nigeria suffering? But that's what they're planting in your mind so that you are not really understanding what's going on. It's just a bold-faced lie.
Yeah, and they're using that same narrative in Ghana about the war and the impact.
They're also saying that Nigeria has been hit hard by the coronavirus, which pushed consumer prices up 17% in 2021, forcing an additional 6 million Nigerians into poverty. Once again, they're lying.
Lying.
It's the money system. Nobody got sick in Nigeria from coronavirus.
Right.
People wasn't doing none of that. This just lies.
Right.
Their central bank, once again, is owned by the British. See, that's what the British did when they gave them their freedom. They just kept a couple things. And one of them was the central bank. The other one was the educational system. And I'm trying to think something else. Something about them. I think it was the military. So they gave them their freedom. So they're not really free. They're still enslaved.
Right.
So now what Nigeria, what Britain did was outsource their management of their colonies to the Negroes who was there.
The house niggas.
That's all what we have.
That's all it is.
Colonialism it's been outsourced to the house niggas.
Yep.
Negroes.
Yep. They sharecroppers.
That's what we are. That's what they're doing, man. All right. Let's see if there's anything else here. And blame the Russians. Nothing about the money system. Nothing about the corruption. Anyway, that's our analysis from a comedic perspective. I hope you guys find it as funny as I do. It's ridiculous.
I did hear briefly. I didn't hear the whole news article because it was just before this program started, but they were talking about Russia and China forming this new World Bank and how the U.S. that will impact the West. And they talked about how the dollar is crumbling, and with this new system, the new currency that they're talking about creating will take over and make the dollar fall considerably.
Yeah, I saw something also about that talked about how India and Russia now are bypass. I think Saudi Arabia too, or either Oman. No, maybe not Oman, but one of those oil countries. They were totally bypassing the dollar, which would ultimately lead to the collapse of the American economy and the world economy. That's what
Yeah.
it's based on.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, bro?
That's it.
Okay, I want to move on to the next one. African news and culture, because they always get us with this culture crap. Interesting. This guy Idris Elba brings a new thriller, Beast, to New York. So they had him sitting up there with two little young black women who were supposedly his daughters, I guess, in the movie, and then some Caucasian guys from South Africa or something. And the gist of the story is that he's married, his wife dies, and he wants to take his children back to South Africa to visit her place. And they get on some safari trip and get stuck out there, and then some beast lion goes crazy and starts hunting them down. So basically, you could just call it Lion King gone wrong. That's the name of the movie, Beast. Lion King goes wrong. Lion King gone wrong. Anyway, it's ridiculous. And then they're saying it's his movie. Then someone brought him the script. And who financed him? And who's putting him up here to do all this? But yet it's his movie. So, it's just like all these mind control things they tell us. And, he's going to get up there and step and fetch it and show the kumbaya stuff and South Africa. Because once again, South Africa, that's what happened with our boy Nelson Obama Mandela. Or I should say, that's who he is. He's a prototype of Obama. Basically outsourcing your colonial activity. He became the bus driver. You drive your bus, Mouser. I'll do the same route. I may go a little slower, and I'm gonna stop at the chicken joint though.
Because we love some fried chicken.
Right. And when I see the watermelon truck, I'm gonna stop there too. Anyway, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. Another article here I saw about this, and I never heard of it, and it doesn't bother me in my opinion, but there's a town in the middle of South Africa. They say it's in Karoo, semi-desert area, which is kind of the center of the country, and it's called Orania. But basically, it's a town where all the so-called white South Africans, or a lot of them, have ran to live. Okay. So there's no blacks there. Some guy brought a bunch of land or had a bunch of land, took a bunch of land. It's all stolen. Right. Anyway, he's got a bunch of land and a bunch of, they said 2,500 descendants of Dutch and French invaders or inhabitants, whatever you want to call them. People there, they live there now. So they are Africans who came in the 17th century, they say, are living in this town, and all the activity is done by the white people, so-called white people. Yeah. My question to this is, who cares? And second of all, why this story, and what's the reason for it? What are your thoughts?
Again, without having the context, I can't really speak to it, but I'm familiar with this town. I've seen it on video. I've seen stories reported about it, and I've seen how they treat Black people, as a result of where they live and who they are, and their claims to the property that they own, that they stole, right? And their stance to protect it, with their lives. And as a matter of fact, at one point, this was back maybe about a year or so ago, they had actually enlisted Israeli soldiers to come in and teach them how to use weaponry and defend themselves.
Yeah.
And so, but again, it's that it's that mindset, that colonial mindset that it's in the DNA. The everything about Mzungu is passed down from generation to generation, and so the current generation doesn't think that they contributed to anything that was as heinous as the killing and apartheid and slavery and all those kinds of things that happened, because it was their ancestors and it wasn't them. But it is
Right.
them. It's still them.
Well, as
You
long as you
can't.
don't renounce the wealth that your ancestors stole, then yeah, it's
Yeah,
still you. According to the
yeah,
Bible, that's it,
right,
right?
right. And if
If
they
you
and
don't
if they
renounce the wealth, then
and
you still just
if they
guilty.
admitted guilt, then that means they have to pay, and they're not trying to pay.
Well, I understand your point of view, and my problem, or the reason why I picked this story out, was because this is clearly an inflammatory article, and it rips off the scab of racial relations in the country of South Africa.
Mm.
And it deals to me with a minor issue to get people inflamed to deal with this rabbit hole without looking at the big ass open pit mine over to the side. Open pit mine is that the money and economic system is still controlled by the British and the
Yep,
so-called European people.
yep.
This little town in the middle of South Africa ain't
It's
got shit.
little
It's
bitty town. Right,
nothing.
right, right.
Let them do that. That's fine. They're gonna die off anyway.
Yeah.
The real issue is the money and who controls the resources. And this is just a red herring to get you off the path of what's really going on and to get upset and Black Lives Matter. Ooh, look at the white people. Oh, and in fact, I got a little story about that because my girl was telling me about how the contractor she had for her house, who was a Negro, not the Christmas cookie in the jar. He thought that someone flushing a toilet would affect the water heater.
Hmm?
That's his understanding. Yeah, that's his understanding of plumbing. He thought that the flushing of a toilet would affect a water heater's functioning, which anyone who has half a brain or studied a little bit of plumbing understands that the plumbing takes hot, cold water, heats it up, sends it out through the house, totally
Right,
off the
right,
cold water system, which is what feeds the toilet. And all
right.
that is basically just a valve to dump stuff down into the sewer to go out. Got no
Mm.
connection whatsoever to a water heater. But that was his level of comprehension. So, I'm like talking to my girl, like, what do you expect when you hire somebody who thinks on that level? What do you expect him to do? But
Right,
anyway, I'm not
right.
going to go much further into that. But what I wanted to say is that even though he doesn't really understand much about contracting or even construction, whatever, he got mad at the property managers who were white Caucasian girls who don't know nothing. They're just little clerks passing paper back and forth that my girl has enlisted to manage the property for because she's needs them.
Hmm.
But because of his, I don't know what's going on in his brain, but he was arguing with them, trying to call them racist and whatnot. These little girls just trying to make it through the day. Yeah, they may be Caucasian and they may be racist, but they're not racist in this issue. And it doesn't even matter. Why are you even bringing that up? You're supposed to get information from them, passkeys, whatever, basic stuff, move on with life. But he's making it into a Black Lives Matter thing. Dude, turn off the TV, man. Anyway, and that's why I see a lot of these things. That's why I'm bringing them up because they're to keep us distracted from the real issues.
Yeah.
If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. Look at the dollars, man. Who running the dollar? That's what
Hmm.
matters.
Hmm.
Anyway,
Right, right. Wow.
okay, go real quick. I want to. Those are news items from over in Africa news in different parts of the country, the world. So I wanted to go over real quickly. I'm gonna be real brief here with what the news was on Yahoo, the top items. And of course, with all this stuff on in the world, they talking about the Trump raid, which who knows what's going on with that? Some say it's valid, some say it ain't valid. I'm going to have to see, the actual documents to understand it. I think it's all a big dog and pony show again.
Mm-hmm.
I think really what they're trying to do is create the catalyst for a civil war.
Mm.
They want the country to devolve into a civil war so that the people who have done all the thievery and stealing and destruction of this country can get away scot-free and go live down in Argentina someplace or whatever.
Mm.
That's what I think this whole Trump thing is. And he's part of the game, or he may not be, but this is what they're trying to do with this Trump raid thing. Because I got people who still think Trump is so great. Like, really?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Just like some people still think Obama's great. It's like, really? Y'all think that? Really?
Right.
So anyway, you got anything to say with that? Because I'm gonna move to the next one. But go ahead. What you got to say on that one? Because I know that's a hot button one for us Negroes here in America. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's the same old thing. It's just now it's more or less on steroids. So that it's so in our faces, and I certainly agree that there is an agenda to cause more division, and it's being propagated by the media, and um, and potentially a civil war. Is what, as you have stated, is the directions they're trying to push this. If it'll go there, it could very well go there. We know that with the whole gun issue, that white people can walk around with their guns and no problem. But if a black man walks around with his gun, his Second Amendment right is threatened.
Well, everybody's got to have their concealed carry permit here, or their constitutional carry permit here in Texas. You can carry a gun, but you have to have
of course,
permit, which to me is against the Second Amendment, because Second Amendment says you can have arms. So you don't need no damn permit, in my opinion. But anyway, go ahead. What were you saying?
Well, regardless of whether you need a permit or not, the point is, if a black man carries his gun in public, he's going to be treated different than a white man carrying his gun in public.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, witness the Panthers.
Yeah, because they think we out to get them. They've always thought that, because they've treated us so bad, when we just trying to live our own black life, right?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I agree with you, and I think that's what's going on. But I don't think they're going to be successful. I think enough people are going to wake up and see that it's really just about the small roaches that are causing the problem, and people are beginning to understand and recognize who the roaches are and calling them out, shining lights on them. Because roaches don't like lights, man. You put a light on the roach, that thing flip out,
yep.
and run. But I got some of them corner killers. You better not go into a corner, because I got them pointy-toed shoes. I'm gonna get you. Hey, you go up in that corner, roach. I'm gonna get you. That's what I'm trying to do. Maybe this is the roach corner killers. Maybe that's what we can call our program.
The roach corner killers.
Roach corner killers. All right, moving on to the next item. This guy, Salman Rushdie, who was a Indian Tom, in my opinion. I shouldn't say it, but that's how I see a lot of the Indians, because they just wannabes, man. They don't have any pride in their own history. And then the fact that in India, they have this caste system, which is the oldest apartheid racial system on the planet, and they hold on to it, that if you're light skinned and white, you good, and if you're black, you bad. These untouchables, all that stuff, they hold on to that. So that's how the British were able to rape them like they did, and a lot of the Indians fall into it. And so, like this guy Salman Rushdie, he lives in England, and he wrote a novel about Islam, and supposedly, it was just some innocuous novel about immigration, but it had some magical stories about, what they were saved from some type of plane hijacking and crash, whatever, through magical stories. And somehow or another, he brought up Prophet Muhammad. Well, you don't mess with the Muslims and their prophet Muhammad, dude. Why are you doing
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
At the behest of the British. So the guy ran up onto the stage and he held him up. He tried to carve him up like a Christmas turkey. They said he stabbed him all in his neck, back, head. They said the dude was in a bad way. And anyway, I just found it interesting that they're bringing that up because I see this once again, putting it around the world as a way to distract us from what's really going on. So you're showing the division between Muslims and how the Muslims are crazy. Look at these Muslims, man, they're crazy. This guy just wrote a book. And then the Muslims, all the Muslims, this is kind of like the inference from the article, want to rush up there and stab the guy because Ayatollah Khomeini, y'all remember him, put out a fatwa to kill this guy. So Muslims are crazy. Not some Muslims are crazy. All Muslims are crazy. That's the idea of this. And that's why this article is being pushed. And that's the Kemetic understanding or interpretation of why this is being put out there like it is around the world. Because we don't live in England.
Right. Right.
In the US. Who cares about this guy? I'm sorry him to get stabbed. Terrible. Anybody have an accident. But why is this being pushed? Who cares about him?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Moving on here. Another article here. US News Yahoo. Frustrated 20-year-old allegedly admits mowing down mourners and bludgeoning his mom. So some guy, like some little fat boy watching video games, got probably on SSRIs, flipped out because maybe she took the pizza away or wouldn't give him his drugs or took away the video game. So gets in the car and mows down some people in a funeral,
right?
And then beats his mom to death.
So it was. I didn't know that it was his mom. Because the last report I heard was that there was a woman and they didn't know the relationship of the woman and him, so it was his mom. Wow.
But this is a crazy boy, and why is he crazy? Why is he crazy? What is he watching on TV? Why does he have a TV? Why is he in school? What drugs are he on? Who's controlling this whole medical treatment to make him such a nutcase? Because this didn't used to be the case.
Right.
So once again, we dig deeper to see why and what's going on and why is it being put out in the media like this. Going on some more articles that are of such significance and that we need to know about from American news. James Harden hints at Sixers versus Knicks Christmas matchup on Twitter. That's very important to know. Kim Kardashian does gym time in a string bikini and thigh-high boots. Wow, my world is better now that I know that.
Of course, and it should be.
Charlottesville's first Black woman police chief fired as officers refused to comply. Another one of those hot button things hits all the controversial issues that'll get people's eyeballs. Sex, male, female, woman, race, and then violence, police. And the thing is, why would you put a Black woman? Supposedly the policeman didn't want her there. Why would you put somebody over them that they don't want to be there? Why would you pick a Black woman to be over all these old white folks?
Right. Why
would you do that? You're setting it up to be a controversy. Here they are doing the same thing.
Well, but understand, and again, this all came in on the heels of George Floyd, where the whole push was to diversify. All the businesses started doing diversity training, and they started putting Black people in higher positions in corporations and putting them on TV in greater degrees, and doing the Netflix went to doing the Black film series and promoting all these Black Lives Matter, as if any of that was going to change anything.
Well, but the Charlottesville was when they did they were talking about Jews will not replace us.
Right.
And they were talking about that. And so they put a Black woman over that, which to me, they set her up to fail to have this particular blowback to get people more involved with this racial thing to have a civil war.
But the ticker for me with that is she allowed it.
Of course, she's a willing dupe.
Allowed it. She was the willing Negro.
A willing Negro. That's right. Willing dupe. A useful idiot is what they call Stalin called him. Why would you even go up in there?
Right.
And she told much she got to protect herself. But anyway, that's what's going on there. I find that interesting because a lot of my sisters would take issue. Well, she a black woman. She should be able to do that. Not
right.
Using your comedic mind.
Right.
And looking at the big picture to understand what's really going on and what we should be doing to move forward.
Yep. Exactly.
That's my point of view. All right, let's move on here because we're getting to the end here, and I got a couple more items. Oh, very important that we need to know this. Dwayne Johnson slams Vin Diesel's proposal for Final Fast and Furious and his manipulation. That's important that we know that. But no mention of the Russian war. No Russia of the nuclear disaster.
Hold up. Do you have Van's number? I need to call him. We need to have a word.
Let's talk to him about what's going on, bro.
Yeah, I need to understand.
But that's how they dumb us down, man, and it's so sad.
Right.
And
people actually sit around and have conversations about this.
I know.
And have these debates around these stupid issues.
Right. And this is something that I want to bring up, and I'm going to say it real quickly because we're at the end here. Got about 3 minutes to go, but University of Stockholm found that PFAS chemicals, which are polyfluorinated, I forget the A and the S, but basically they're some type of all your Teflon type stuff, and it's used in fire retardants, but basically it's a fluoride, which is a poison automatically when it's isolated, and it's polyfluoride something. I need to look it up. But anyway, it's what they call a forever chemical. And just let me say briefly, any chemical artificially created by man is a poison. But this one here doesn't even degrade. Even the germs won't eat it. It just lays out there, man. The chemical don't go away. And they found it in rainwater around the planet, even in Antarctica. So this is in the environment everywhere. And it causes growth, destruction to the body. Your production, your area, your growth hormones, your thyroid, just destroys humans. But this is something we put out there because somebody wanted to make some money. Right. They had a little profit, so they created this chemical that's going to basically do a lot of people in. And then not only top of that, they have this geoengineering where they spray us every day. If you look up, you see it. The strontium, aluminum, barium, magnesium, the polymers, the graphene oxide. And so when you add that to this water, you got a toxicity of 100 times that. So we are basically in a toxic soup. And even still, as divine creatures, we're able to get through this. So what we need to do is continue to look to raise our divinity. And get past these things because our minds are very powerful. And that's where I wanted to finally get back to where we're going to give some good thoughts for people. Drink clean water, think clean thoughts, know that you are a spirit having a physical experience. None of this stuff will bother you to the degree that they wanted to, and that we are going to come out of it. Any words, brother?
Yeah, I mean, it's very key that you mentioned about drinking clean water. Most of the water tables in the U.S. they're fully contaminated with all of the flooding, the hurricanes, the water systems as a whole are contaminated because we know sewage has overflowed during these hurricanes and these storms, and all of that is going back into the ground, going back into the water tables. And so even just drinking water straight from the tap is not good. Even bathing with it really ain't all that good for our skin. No, but it's what we have, right? But certainly putting it inside our bodies is not good. It's not good. So filtering that water out is so important, just the general health and clarity of mind and thought.
Clarity of mind. Yeah. For me, I just do distilled water. I only do distilled water. I was looking at another article that said that if you do use tap water for your bathing, What we need to start getting into is rubbing ourselves down with hydrogen peroxide afterwards, which I found interesting.
Interesting. Yeah.
To remove, a lot of those toxins.
Mm.
But the bad guys are on the run. They're trying to get us to think that they're going to turn us all into robots, even though a lot of us are. I know I am to a degree with my cell phone, like we were talking earlier. They got us on this thing, but they're going to lose, and they know they're going to lose. That's why they get more dangerous or more desperate to do that.
Right.
But I still hold up high hope, and I'm thankful to be here because the Creator put us here for this experience, and it's a wonderful experience. No matter how many challenges we have, it's still beautiful and wonderful, and always keep that in mind. No matter what you're facing, be thankful. And love and gratitude to all. What else you got, brother? We want to close this out? You got any last words?
Yeah, there's a saying, know yourself and you will know your God. And in that divinity that we have, that most people don't know that we have everything that we need for our well-being and our sense of being, that will protect us and carry us through all of these things that have been thrusted upon us by the as one Kemite says, by the inorganic ones.
The Setians.
The inorganic ones are the ones that are behind all of the stuff that's not good, and so because we are divine, we know that we have everything in us to survive anything that's in the water systems that or anything that may be in food that because we've not eaten as clean as we should be eating or whatever, or it was sprayed in the air, those kinds of things. I was walking out on my walk today and I saw a sign posted at the school around the corner, and they were talking about spraying for mosquitoes.
Yeah, what was they spraying anyway? But
right.
That's another story.
Exactly.
In my point of view, we're going to question everything because we got it like that, and we're thankful for it. And like I wanted to say one final time, give thanks for all, and if it doesn't make sense to you, ask the universe for clarity, but give thanks anyway. And with that, we out of here. This Kemites View on Sunday, what is it, what date is this? The 14th? Yes, 14th of August. And thank you for your time. We wish you love and gratitude. Peace and blessings.
All right. Gratitude, my brother.